Welcome to your deep dive. We're diving into a personal memoir, really incredible detail tracing this person's journey to becoming an electrical engineer. But, it's not just your typical biography.
Not at all.
Get ready for a story, I think, where history, education, and just personal resilience all kind of come together to paint this vivid picture of a life, shaped by really extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah, and even what's so striking is how this story, while it's unique, of course, it reflects the experiences of so many others who are navigating these similar challenges and experiencing these incredible triumphs during a time of just massive global change.
It's true. And thinking about that global change, let's set the stage, okay? It's 1934. We're in Guangzhou, and the author's parents, both educators, meet at a teacher's college, talk about a match made in academia.
Right.
They embark on this journey together, and it's right on the precipice of the Sino-Japanese War.
It's incredible, isn't it? How these individual lives just become so interwoven with these monumental historical events.
Mm-hmm.
And the memoir really captures that palpable tension of the time. You can just sense this looming threat of war casting a shadow over everything.
Yeah, and the author's early childhood, anything but ordinary. Born in Macau in 1940, so they're just a toddler when the family has to flee.
Oh, wow.
Deeper into China as the conflict escalates, and, there's this really vivid detail where the author describes being carried in a bamboo basket during this time.
Wow.
It's such a small detail, but it's so powerful.
Yeah.
It really speaks volumes about the resilience of families during wartime.
It really does. You think about the resourcefulness, the determination to adapt to these unpredictable and, let's be honest, often dangerous circumstances.
Imagine being uprooted like that.
Multiple times at such a young age.
Yeah.
It speaks to a certain, strength and adaptability that we see throughout their life, really.
It's true, and that resilience is tested again in 1950. Things are starting to settle, but then what happens?
Right. The Chinese Civil War erupts. Of course. And this forces the family to make a huge decision. They pack their bags and set sail for Hong Kong, hoping for a fresh start. But this wasn't just a change of scenery, was it?
No, this was a complete cultural shift.
It was huge.
Hong Kong in the 1950s, it was a vibrant, truly a melting pot of cultures and influences. This move would expose them to so many new perspectives, new opportunities. It ultimately shapes the course of their life, and, it's interesting how it specifically influences their path to engineering, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And their new life begins at PACU Middle School, where both parents are able to secure teaching positions. But here's something interesting. The author, just a fourth grader at the time, is placed directly into junior high.
Wow.
That's quite the academic leap.
It really is. It speaks to their, obviously their aptitude, but also this kind of unconventional approach to education that seemed to be happening at PACU.
Yeah, and the memoir paints such a picture of this school. You really get a sense of its character.
I bet. They had a flood stream, they called it, that never actually flooded. There was this nearby nightclub frequented by British troops.
Oh, well.
Imagine the stories. And then even just this playful nickname that the students gave to the author's father, they called him Sleepy Headmaster.
That's funny.
Can you imagine putting that on a Father's Day card?
I love it.
It's heartwarming, though. You see these glimpses of humor, normalcy, right? Amidst this huge transition to a new life.
It really highlights that even in the face of upheaval, there's still room for laughter and camaraderie.
Yeah.
Those uniquely human moments that make up a life.
This PACU school sounds like quite the experience, but there's one person who really emerges as a turning point for the author. Their physics and math teacher, Mr. Cheng.
It's amazing how one person, right, can have such a huge impact.
I know.
Mentors like Mr. Cheng, they do more than just teach. They really ignite these passions and instill these values that shape who we become.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the author talks about him with such admiration, even quotes him in the memoir. He apparently lived by this motto, "A brave man does not fear a crisis, he handles it with a smile."
Wow.
Powerful, right?
Yeah.
Especially given everything the author had already been through.
It's true.
Yeah.
And speaking of challenges, the author's goal was always to pursue higher education, to eventually study abroad. But the path to university in Hong Kong at that time, not so straightforward.
Especially for graduates of Chinese schools.
Right. You've got the University of Hong Kong, very much modeled after these British universities. It presented a real hurdle.
It did, yeah.
For students like the author.
So what did they do?
Well, so there was a solution.
Okay.
But it was a challenging one. It was called the Special Classes Center. the SCC.
Okay, so this SCC, it sounds like it played a really key role. It was designed specifically to bridge that gap, right, between Chinese middle schoolers and the English-based curriculum at HKU.
Exactly. And imagine the dedication to even attempt this. Yeah. I mean, the author could have chosen a different path, probably one with less resistance, but no.
Yeah.
Their ambition, their drive led them to this really, really demanding program.
It sounds intense. Rigorous English classes, and remember, everything at HKU was taught in English, plus advanced math and literature courses, all to get ready for these big HKU entrance exams. They even used recordings for language practice. Students would describe these images aloud, record themselves, and then analyze their own performance.
Wow, talk about being ahead of their time.
Right.
I mean, that just shows you, like, that dedication to self-improvement, that willingness to try new methods.
And it worked. After just 1 year at SCC, the author aced that HKU English exam.
That's amazing.
I know, and it's even more impressive when you think about the challenges of, living apart from their parents to be closer to the school.
It's easy to overlook those details, but you're right, that speaks volumes about their commitment.
For sure.
The sacrifices they made. They lived with classmates at first in this tiny, cramped room in Kowloon. And then, thanks to a kind connection, they were able to move to a more spacious flat in Kowloon Tong. But still,
right.
It's a real testament to the community that rallied around them. Parents, teachers, even families of classmates.
It really does take a village. So you'd think, after conquering those HKU exams, things would get a little bit easier.
You would think.
But this is where the story, it takes another turn. Because remember their dream of studying abroad?
Right.
Well, that dream was about to come true, but not without some tough choices and some anxieties along the way.
And this is where the author's story, I think, resonates with so many immigrant families, right?
Oh, yeah.
That balance between pursuing these opportunities for a better future, but also grappling with these uncertainties of the unknown. And not just for yourself, but for your loved ones, too.
And those anxieties, they were understandable, Put yourself in their shoes for a second. You're 17 years old. Acceptance letters start rolling in. Not just one, but 3 from Canadian universities, all for electrical engineering. Queen's University, Dalhousie University, the University of New Brunswick, all saying yes.
That's incredible. Talk about a good problem to have, though, right?
Right. Exhilarating and maybe a little daunting.
Absolutely. I mean, it's validation of all that hard work. But yeah, now you've got this huge decision. Which path to choose, and how do you weigh those options? Not just for yourself, but for your family.
So much pressure.
Especially when they're still finding their own way in a new country.
It's true. In the end, the author chooses Queen's, one of Canada's top engineering schools. Pretty bold choice.
It is, and the memoir doesn't really get into every single factor, but you see these hints of practicality, even serendipity, that influence the decision.
Oh, interesting.
The author mentions visa requirements for studying in the U.S. That would have been really tough financially. It's just a good reminder that sometimes it's these external factors, these chance encounters, that can really shape our path.
That's a really good point. Life is rarely a straight line. So, Queen's it is. And with that decision made, it's all hands on deck for preparations. Family savings are pooled together. A custom-made winter coat is commissioned. Gotta be ready for those Canadian winters. And the logistics of the journey, it was a whole thing.
It's amazing to think about how different international travel was back then. Flying was an option.
Yeah.
But the author chooses a ship. It was a multi-week voyage.
Wow.
And that tells you something, right? Not just about the cost of air travel at the time, but even just, think about it. Packing up your whole life to start over somewhere new. You couldn't just take a carry-on.
That's such a powerful image.
It really is. A young person with their whole world packed into a few suitcases, heading off into the unknown.
It really makes you think about the courage that took. And even just reading about, they needed a Republic of China passport from the Macau consulate because they weren't born in Hong Kong.
Right.
Can you imagine dealing with that today?
And again, it brings up this idea of identity, right? Where do you belong? We've seen that throughout the author's story.
Definitely.
Leaving a place they weren't quite a citizen of, heading towards another where citizenship was still to be earned.
Powerful. Okay, so it's August 20, 1957. Picture the Hong Kong harbor. It's bustling. Our author is standing on the deck of the President Cleveland, this huge ocean liner, getting ready to sail. And down below, their parents, their brother, a close family friend, all waving goodbye. Can you imagine that mix of emotions?
It's universal, isn't it? That bittersweet excitement for what's ahead, but the sadness of leaving people behind, I think that's what makes this memoir so powerful. It captures these very personal, very human moments, but against the backdrop of these huge historical events.
It does. And just like that, they were gone, sailing towards a new horizon, leaving behind everything familiar to chase a dream. And it makes you think, all those early years, the resilience, the war, the displacement, that unconventional education, it all built up to this moment, didn't it?
It makes you wonder how those experiences shaped them.
It really does.
Their perspective, their work ethic, even just how they approached the challenges, the triumphs, everything that came with becoming an electrical engineer.
It's a question worth thinking about for sure.
It is. And I think, this deep dive gave us a glimpse into those really formative years and hopefully a better understanding of how our personal stories are always bumping up against these larger forces in the world. So next time you pick up a memoir or a biography, keep that in mind.
That's a great takeaway.
Every story, even if it seems ordinary, it has something to teach us about the human experience, about our resilience, about our complexities.
What a powerful thought to end on. Thanks for joining us for this incredible journey. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep into the stories that, well, they shape us all.